USC is ranked 6th in a college football coaches preseason poll. Kawhi Leonard will be ready for Clippers training camp, and the Rams are young. Like, card them before they buy the six-pack young. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is August 8th, 2023. I'm in a terrific mood. I'm going to be spending the day with my wife. Maybe we'll go outside. Maybe she'll wear a bikini. Maybe I'll embarrass myself. But whatever. Before all that happens, let's talk LA sports. If you like being in the know about LA sports, click-clack the like button. Click-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist, and comment. There's always good stuff to talk about when it comes to LA. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. Yesterday, down in Slum Diego, the Padres took a 5-0 lead, and then the Dodgers said, you know what? Enough of this giving them hope crap. Mookie Betts hits a grand slam to cap off an 8th-run 6th inning. Betts, by the way, has 31 home runs this year. LA takes 3 of 4 at Dodger Stadium South. They beat the Padres 13-7. Devastating series defeat for the Puds. They are now 4 games out of the last wild card spot. Catching the Dodgers, by the way, after spending all that money in the offseason, yeah, that's not happening either. They are 11 games behind the Dodgers right now. Meanwhile, today, the Dodgers shift focus to Arizona at 6:40. Julio Urias is 8-6 with a 4.69 ERA. And the very befuddling name of Brandon Buffat. And I apologize if I know I mispronounced this guy's name. Buffett. 0-5. 7.11 ERA. The Sparks are at Atlanta. That's at 4 o'clock. The Sparks are 2.5 games out of the last WNBA playoff spot with 12 games left in the regular season for the WNBA. LAFC is at Real Salt Lake at 7:30. This is the round of 16 match in this Leagues Cup stuff. But let's get back to USC. The preseason coaches poll was released Monday with USC ranked 6th. Now, it's not a good idea to read too much into preseason polls because we simply just don't have enough intel. Oh, but that's not going to stop the scribes from giving hot takes about it. There's this lunkhead named Barrett Sally over at CBS who said USC is overrated. To which I ask, based on what? Care to tell me? Before I go further into it, a few years ago, I got into it with him on Twitter. He was covering the SEC for the Belcher Report and claimed that despite 7 players being arrested, including Johnny Manziel, regarding Texas A&M, he opined off-season arrests shouldn't be an indictment of the program. What? Now that is an idiotic take, and I told him so. Because first of all, you can't count. It was way more than 7 arrests. By my count, over the last calendar year for Texas A&M back then, it was more than a dozen. You can't count. And by the way, if you are stupid enough to get arrested in College Station, Texas, where everyone loves the Aggies and is more than willing to look the other way when you act the fool, you are seriously undisciplined. So yes, Sally, getting that many people arrested is an indictment on your program. Discipline means a lot in football. Trojans fans, of course, know this because of the Clay Helton era of unbridled stupidity. Discipline does matter. So we argue over it, and Sally, I guess he blocked me or something. 2 quarterbacks were among those multiple people arrested, including Manziel. And where is Johnny Manziel now? Exactly. Knocking on the door of the XFL, trying to get a sniff. Barrett Sally, when it comes to writing college football, he is literally the human form of the meme that you see, where there's a dog with a cup of coffee sitting in a room that's on fire, saying everything is fine. But let's get back to reality. This is a coach's poll. Now, maybe it's me, but I think coaches know a little bit more about football than some SEC simp. So when he says USC is overrated, I actually find that a reason to be optimistic. So where do we see the Trojans right now? Again, we still don't have too much intel. We know that the offense is probably top 5 in the nation, maybe the very best offense in the nation. The defense, we know they recruited hard. We don't know what it amounts to. But the Pac-12 writers and the analytics geeks all believe that USC will win the conference with about 10 wins. So where would that put USC if they win the conference with a defending Heisman Trophy winner and 10 wins, possibly 11? That would make them one of the top 6 teams in the country. So no, I don't believe USC is overrated at all. Sorry, Barrett. Having said that, we still deal with reality over at Faithful Angelenos. We do deal with bad news. The Trojans lost an elite quarterback for the recruiting class of 2024. Dakota Fields, he withdrew his commitment and decided to enroll, or say he's going to enroll, at Oregon instead. He committed to USC in June. Dude, if you want to dress up in one of those banana uniforms that Oregon has, you go for it. It's your life. Meanwhile, overall, on the West Coast, we may have whittled the conference down to the Pac-2 instead of the Pac-12. The ACC is allegedly discussing adding both Cal and Stanford. Bonus points, by the way, if you can name the 2 orphans who still believe in Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff. ESPN, as a result, asked an intelligent question. We have been harping on what it means for USC and UCLA football to leave the Pac-12. Everybody's been harping on that. But what about basketball? Specifically for UCLA and USC, especially UCLA, because UCLA is synonymous with winning NCAA titles. And the Trojans have been closing the gap a bit in the last couple of years. Keep in mind, though, here's what I can tell you, which is very little. Because the scribes asked the question and didn't answer it. Way to go, guys. Well done. Thank you for not answering a question that you asked. Thank you for not approaching people who might know the answer. Well done, ESPN. Anyway, this might be a good move for UCLA and USC because the conference has not had a national basketball champion since 1997 and only a couple of Final Four appearances in the last 15 years. Right? So the Pac-12's reputation has been sliding, and the results bear it out. But what I will say is that I have a very rough guess as to where the difficulty is for both USC and UCLA and which of the 2 teams should weather it better. Football teams travel once a week, 1 game per week. When you're on the road in college basketball, you are playing 2 road games for that week, right? So my guess is you have to recruit the types of players who are willing to regularly take cross-country flights and possibly 2 cross-country flights, or I should say 3. Say if you're in LA, you fly to Nebraska, then you got to fly to Ohio State, then you got to fly right back home. That is a lot of time in airports. My guess is UCLA is ahead of the curve because they've been recruiting international players. I think those recruits are just so thrilled to be part of a worldwide recognized program like the Bruins that they'll be more than willing to get on that plane. More so than American-born players. Now that's just a rough guess, but I think I might be right. Clippers coach Ty Lue told the scribes that Kawhi Leonard will be ready for training camp. Leonard was ruled out of Game 3 in the first round of the NBA playoffs. The Clippers were coy about the injury until they were eliminated. Turned out that Leonard had a torn meniscus in his surgically repaired knee. Now the Clippers are snake bit. Let's just be real. A couple of days ago, I mentioned how many games Anthony Davis had missed since he came to the Lakers. He has nothing on the Clippers. Leonard has only played 161 of a possible 308 Clippers regular season games since he came to LA. He's just as likely to miss the game as he is to play it. Meanwhile, Paul George, not much better. He's only played in 189 of those games. Now, the Clippers also signed Jordan Miller to a two-way contract, which means you'll probably be seeing him in Ontario just as well as you would be seeing him in the NBA. He was taken 48th in this year's NBA draft. The LA Times speculated on the Rams Sunday, and then it happened. The Rams have signed safety John Johnson. They brought him back to the team on a one-year deal. He spent the first 4 years of his career in LA and then spent the last year and a half over in Cleveland on a big money deal. He was eventually cut. The thing is, Johnson might start. He actually might start with the Rams really quickly. There is an opening among Rams safeties in the sense that Quinton Lake and Russ Yeast are only second-year players, which brings to mind the bigger picture that the Rams are facing this year. The Rams have the league's youngest coach. We already knew that. Sean McVay, I don't know if the guy ever looks older than 32. But they also have by far the youngest roster that the NFL has seen probably in decades. 52 of their 88 players are age 24 or younger. The average age on the team right now is 24.6 years. Last year, on opening day, the average age of an NFL team was 26.08. So again, we have to deal with reality. The last team to approach being as young as the Rams are now was the 2017 Cleveland Browns. The average age of that team in week 1, 24.76. That team went 0-16. Brace yourselves. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts, by the way, confirmed Clayton Kershaw will get the start on Thursday. My only Dodger note for the day. Go figure. The Sparks are struggling. Mentioned them earlier. I get that. I do. But I will say, at least this current team is not annoying. Last year's team, they were terrible on the court, and they had terrible players who were on, whether they were on the court or off, just terrible people. Like former center Liz Cambridge. She single-handedly ruined the Sparks last year. Teammates revolted against her. She got the coach fired because this so-called model, she calls herself a model. I've seen my wife in more magazines than Liz Cambridge, by the way. This so-called model went diva. She was drummed out of the NBA for her diva behavior. And then when she knew she couldn't get a job in the WNBA, she claimed she needed to take a sabbatical to work on her mental health. So how is she progressing on her mental health? Glad you asked. She was interviewed Monday and started off by denying throwing racial slurs at the players of the Nigerian basketball team in 2021. Matter of fact, she claimed that the Nigerians asked her to join their team. Yeah, the same Nigerians that she allegedly called monkeys, the same Nigerians that she allegedly told to go back to their third world country. So when the players on the team heard this from Liz Cambridge, one of them replied, literally everyone on both teams had the same story but her. As for Cambridge joining the Nigerian team, the same player replied, LOL. Cambridge is working on her mental health. You know, I've read some Freud, I've read some Carl Jung. I didn't realize lying was an integral part of rebuilding your mental health journey. Oh, sure, there's meditation, there's exposure therapy, keeping a journal, and don't forget lying. Don't forget lying. That is great to rehab your mental state. How long did it take this chick to rebuild the fantasy world that she lives in? Her journal has to read like a first draft of a Game of Thrones script, for Pete's sakes. Liz Cambridge working on her mental health. By the way, the coach that got fired from the Sparks, thanks to Liz Cambridge, is Lakers legend Derek Fisher. Now, after having to manage that psych ward, he finally landed another job in coaching. And of course, the people that he'll be coaching now are far more mature than Liz Cambridge ever would be. He's going to coach Crespi High School. The dude won 5 NBA rings. 5. And he's coaching high school to rehab his own sanity after having to work with Liz Cambridge. By the way, Sparks guard Laishia Clarendon was fined by the WNBA for a scuffle in Sunday's victory. Clarendon drove to the hoop during the game. She was taken out with a hard foul. Clarendon then tackled the lady who fouled her. And if you're saying, gee, James, you have become the #1 source for Sparks news, you would be right. Yes, indeed, you're right. There's a belief that the Lakers are the only team that has any interest in free agent center Christian Wood. I mean, yeah, we heard some chit chat about how Chicago might be interested, but nothing in particular happened. And that makes you believe that the scuttlebutt probably came from Woods' camp to try to pry a better contract out of LA. Here is something, though, from the grapevine Wood might not like to read. People in the NBA think he's a lousy teammate. Unprofessional was a word bandied about. One source went so far as to tell the LA Times that, quote, if LeBron James can get him to toe the line, it cements LeBron as the greatest player of all time. That's how hard it is, unquote, to work with Christian Wood. So you keep hearing that name. And so I have a question for you. Do you really want a guy at the end of your bench metastasizing to a decent team like a cancer? I wouldn't. Finally, LA Galaxy midfielder Gaston Brugman underwent successful surgery to repair his left knee, but he is done for the year. Fortunately, the Galaxy have been acquiring players to possibly fill the gap. We'll see how that works out. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me if you are optimistic about USC after the coaches poll. Talk to me about the Clippers being even more snake bit about injuries than the Lakers. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.